Well, I want to welcome all of you this morning to this beautiful facility, and I would imagine you know why you're here. I'm really excited, and before I start my comments, I want to highlight the Poshard family, and I'm going to start with the real boss here. And where's the boss? Joe, is she right here? All right, Joe, if you stand and give a big round of applause. You know, Dr. Poshard's a smart man, but he knows that he better listen, right? He knows that. And also, I know we have members of the Poshard family right down front. If you would please stand and be recognized, and let us give you a big round of applause as well. Great. Wow. It's a lot of family. Right? I was just thinking, I don't have nearly that many family members that would show up. That's great. Well, I, again, am very honored. And looking at the size of the crowd, it really tells me the impact that Dr. Poshard has made on each of you, but then most importantly on the Southern Illinois region and also across the state and across the country. I know when I arrived 2 years ago, I heard that name over and over again, Dr. Poshard, Dr. Poshard. And when I had a chance to meet him at lunch with Judge Gilbert and some other folks, I can see why we're doing what we're doing today. Again, Dr. Poshard, congratulations. We're very proud of all the things that you've accomplished in your tenure. You've made this university proud, so thank you for taking time and being here. We have some special acknowledgments, and if I miss you, I apologize. But I'm going to start with, if we have any former state reps or senators or city officials, if you could please stand and be recognized. I know we have some out in the audience, and I don't want to miss you. So please stand, and let's give them a big round of applause. Okay, thank you for that. And we have speakers that will speak today, so as I announce some special guests, just know we'll come back and introduce some of the folks that you see on my left and on my right. But pleased to have with us today our SIU Board of Trustees Secretary, Dr. Subhash Sharma. If you give Dr. Sharma a round of applause. We have Susan Cogan representing SIU Board of Trustees member John Simmons. Susan here. Hey, Susan. Suzanne. Now, Suzanne also has a son that's a student in the aviation program. Would you please stand? All right. There we go. Great. We have one of the best dressed state senators here, Dale Fowler. Where's Senator Fowler? There you are. Got his socks on and everything there, but I tell you what, the guy next to you will probably outdo you, though. Our State Representative Paul Jacobs, you give him a round of applause. He's here with his wife. I had a distinct pleasure this morning of meeting our former SIU Board of Trustee member and retired interim SIU Carbondale Chancellor, Dr. Sam Goldman. Dr. Goldman, would you please recognize Dr. Goldman? We also have one of our distinguished faculty members and also previous Chancellor, Dr. John Jackson, his wife Nancy are here in the audience. If you please stand. We thrive on our partnerships. I noticed we have some of our mayors that are here. I'm going to ask Mike Absher. Is Mike here? Marion Mayor. Mike Absher. Is Mike here? Hey, Mike. Mike, we got a seat up front. You didn't have to sit that far back. We apologize. You can come down anytime. I think we also, for those that are standing, we do have some seats that are kind of mixed in here. So if you get tired of standing, please come down. We also have, there are a few others in here, and again, I don't want to mess this up, but on the stage with us or on the left and right of me, I do want to get into some of the folks that are here that will be speaking. Oliver Keys, class of 2014, the assistant professor in the School of Automotive Technology. Oliver, if you please stand and be recognized. Our SIU trustee, Roger Chedrick. Trustee Chedrick, would you please stand? SIU Board Vice Chair, Dr. Ed Hightower. Dr. Hightower? We have our SIU System President here, Dr. Dan Mahoney, and his wife, Laura. Would you guys please stand? And to round us off for our Board of Trustees is our distinguished chairman, SIU Board Chair, he told me to call him Philbert. I said, I won't do that. All right, I won't do that. So that's Judge Gilbert and Gail are here with us. Would you please give them a big round of applause as well? I'm very pleased with the support that we received from the state. We have some very distinguished folks with us today. Representative Jay Hoffman is here, Assistant House Majority Leader. Thank you. And very pleased to have our Deputy Governor, Andy Manar, is here on behalf of Governor Pritzker. Okay, now I'd like to introduce or invite our first speaker, an alumnus, an automotive technology professor, Oliver Keyes, to share his own personal experience with Dr. Poshard. Oliver?
Good morning. I'd like to tell you all a quick story. It's pretty unique. In the fall of 2009, a busload of high school boys from the Metro East St. Louis, Belleville, and O'Fallon area participated in the annual leadership program here at SIU, hosted by the Paul Simon Public Policy Institute. This program focuses on leadership development and community service, plus motivating and encouraging youth to contribute to their community. That year, a group of young men attended the program where Martin Luther King III was the keynote speaker. Following the program, Dr. Poshard, impressed with the attentive young men, offered scholarships to SIU. I tell you this story because I was one of those young men. I was only a freshman in high school. 4 years later, I decided to take Dr. Poshard up on his offer. He kept his word. I knocked and he paid up. I don't know if I've ever actually had the chance to say thank you, but thank you. Thank you for allowing me and other students the opportunity to study at SIU when many of us didn't have the means to attend college. As a first-generation college student myself, there were a lot of unknowns, but this opportunity changed the trajectory of my life. Without the burden of having to pay for undergraduate school, it allowed me to study abroad through the College of Business in the south of France, and later attend graduate school. So, I still have student loan debt. However, I don't have as much. Fast forward to now, I am proud to be a graduate of the most renowned automotive program in the world. Even more, I am proud to be the newest member of the automotive technology staff as assistant professor here in the Glenn Poshard Technology and Education Building. With the help of Dr. Baker and the Simon Institute, I have a picture that I would like to present to Dr. Poshard on that day 15 years ago. There were many of us, however, only a few of us took him up on his offer, only because some of us chose to go to institutions like LSU, Duke, so on and so forth. And I think of a friend of mine who lived on the same street as me, who's actually in London in acting school after graduating from LSU. So I want you to know there are a lot of success stories and not just me. Again, thank you.
Wow, powerful. Talk about access and opportunity and taking him up on that offer. I like when you said he paid up there, right? He took care of that for you. I'd be remiss if I didn't single out our faculty in the automotive technology or aviation programs and all the faculty in this building. Could you wave and be recognized? Could we give them a round of applause for the work they do? Great stories there. Our next speaker has served on the Board of Trustees since 2004 and is a former member of both the SIU Alumni Association and the SIU Foundation boards. Trustee Tedrick, would you please come forward and say a few words?
I was fortunate to serve as chairman of the board when Glenn was hired as president. I knew it was going to be a learning experience. As Chair Gilbert and President Mahoney will tell you, the board chair and the president at times deal daily with each other. So I knew Glenn and I had to build a relationship. I knew Glenn, but not well. We had served on the Board of Trustees for a short time together. He was board chair then, and he stepped down so he could be a candidate. The board thought that he was the right person for this job, and it proved to be correct. He always had the board's support. And I'd like to tell you a few stories, as some of them funny and some of them were kind of tough. But I had a concern that a person coming that was so successful in what he had done, could he handle being president of an institution like this? So I always looked at the leadership issues, and a good leader always creates a good team around him of bright people. His leadership team of Paula Keith as his administrative assistant, Dwayne Stuckey handled finance, John Holler, Marshall, the academic mission of the university, and Dave Gross was top-notch. They all worked well together. They supported Glenn. Glenn supported them, and they got a lot of things done. Another thing that I was curious about was, how does Glenn make decisions? So as I worked with him, it became very evident that every decision he made for this university system, he made from the bottom of his heart. He thought what was the right thing to do. He didn't let politics get in it, he didn't let ego get in it, and he did not let other outside influences. It's what he thought was the right thing for the university at the time. You know, this building was number 10 on our list that we had submitted to the state for funding. And Glenn saw that it would be good for the university, be good for the campus, it'd be good for the college, and it'd be good for this program. And he moved it up to number 1. And we couldn't get it funded by the state at the time. They just weren't funding like that. So he and Dave Gross got in their car, and they spent 6 months driving around Illinois lobbying with legislators to get a capital bill passed. And lo and behold, it was passed, and this building is what came from that. We had a lot of interesting times. This at that time was a $900 million enterprise. Think about that. That's revenue and expenditures on an annual basis. And with that, you're going to have some problems. So it was always interesting to see how Glenn would handle those problems. There were times I thought he should probably shy away from them, and that's not Glenn. He stood right up and faced him like a man, and seems like they always had a good result. I got to tell you a funny story, even though there were times that were tough. We had some levity too, but I want to tell you a funny story. We were going to advertise for a chancellor for the Carbondale campus in the fall, on fall term. I think Sam Goldman was our interim chancellor at the time. And we had a board member, Keith Sanders, who had been a chancellor in Wisconsin and was head of IBHE at a time, and Dr. John Holler got together and decided that we could increase the quality of our pool, if maybe they started contacting people and invite them to campus over the summer on an unofficial basis for a meet and greet with the president and tour the campus. There was a guy from the Northeast that got wind of this, and I don't think he was invited by any of our people. But he got an appointment with Glenn. Later that afternoon, I got a phone call. And Glenn was laughing so hard he couldn't talk. So I just waited for him to compose himself. He had just about get composed and he'd burst out laughing again. Well, he had me laughing. I didn't even know what was funny. He says, finally got hold of himself. He says, Raj, that's what he always called me, Raj. He said, you will not believe what just happened. I said, okay, tell me. He says, that guy from the Northeast came in. He came into my office for an interview in a pair of cut-off jeans, a T-shirt, a cap, and brought a great big dog with him. And he proceeded to let this dog loose. And Glenn says this dog was roaming around while I was trying to talk to this guy. They made me nervous. And he says, all of a sudden it got real quiet. And he says, I looked around, and sure enough, that dog was using the bathroom in the corner of my office. In closing, I want to share something with you that surprised me. In my dealings with Glenn, we learned to respect each other. It was an enjoyable time. But one thing happened when I stepped away in 2011. I was thinking, and it dawned on me, we had developed a close personal friendship. And what I'm really proud of and what I really cherish is the fact that friendship lasts today. Thank you.
Got to hear more about that story of the dog and what happened. I'm sure there's some more to that. Great words. Thank you, Trustee Tedrick. We appreciate you. I'd also want to add before our next speaker comes up, thanks to the folks that put this together. I know Matt Kupek, CEO of the foundation, Darla, is right there in the door. If you give them a round of applause over there, they worked really hard to get this done. It takes a team effort here. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Ed Hightower. Dr. Hightower, who has served on the SIU Board of Trustees for several years and is now its vice chair. Please welcome Dr. Ed Hightower.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chancellor. Before I get into my comments, I've got a confession to make. Many of you years ago would say to me, Hightower, put on your glasses. See what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. Well, I'm putting them on now. I should have had them on all of those years when I was missing all of those bad calls against Carbondale. On a serious note, to our state legislators, trustees, President Mahoney, Chancellor Elaine, friends, and guests. Glenn, today is a special day for you, Joe, and the entire Poshard family. Your love and devotion to SIU, to the SIU system, and the entire Southern Illinois region have always been on display in everything that you've done and continue to do. Your leadership as Vice Chancellor for the administration at SIU Carbondale, Chairman of the SIU Board of Trustees, President of the Southern Illinois University System, all of those times will continue to make life better for students and employees for years to come. Your accomplishments are many, and when I say many, they are many. Let me just highlight as Roger touched on a couple. Let me just highlight 3 or 4. As I was with Glenn every step of the way from the time he came onto the board until I left the board. Helping SIUE continue its transformation from a commuting campus to one with full service on-campus housing, evident by the Evergreen Hall. Bringing additional funding for operational support to the newly created SIU School of Pharmacy, and through the same capital bill that brought us the Glenn Poshard Transportation Education Center we see today. While working closely with Representative Jay Hoffman, you secured funding for the SIUE Science Building and renovation. I know all of the work Glenn did in the Edwardsville area because I lived there and watched how he was a chairman and president for the whole system. It was your vision for the SIUC Saluki Way and SIUC Student Services Building. However, for me, one of the most significant achievements occurred when Illinois universities received little or no state funding. It was through your positive leadership, passion, integrity, that funding and resources for higher education were provided. Today, we celebrate another capital development. Funding accomplishment for you that you spearheaded, the Glenn Poshard Transportation Education Center. Folks, if you spent any time with Glenn Poshard, you've heard him say often how a college degree is an essential ticket to the middle class and success. As we come together today at the Glenn Poshard Transportation Education Center, home to 2 of the most exemplary job creation programs in the region, in the country, in the nation, we celebrate what is best about this institution. Its ability to cultivate great leaders and a devotion to ensuring every young person has the opportunity to succeed. This resource center will unlock the potential greatness of many young leaders and will be remembered as a symbol of your leadership. I want to close with a quote from Nelson Mandela that summarizes you, Glenn Poshard. It says, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that we and will be determined the significance of life we live and lead." Glenn, thank you for your leadership and thank you for being a friend of Ed Hightower. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Dr. Hightower. I know that Glenn's family here knows that when you have this kind of acknowledgement, it gets a little emotional sometimes, right? It gets a little emotional. So this is really good to see all the family here and to take all this in. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Mahoney, who served as the SIU System President since March of 2020. Please welcome Dr. Mahoney to the podium.
Well, first of all, thank you, Chancellor Elaine, Chair Gilbert, members of the SIU Board of Trustees, President Emeritus Poshard and Joe, all of our elected officials and distinguished guests, members of the SIU family, as well as members of the very large Poshard family that are with us here today. I want to welcome you all, and as we come together really this morning to recognize the accomplishments of Glenn Poshard and his impact on SIU Carbondale, the SIU system, the Southern Illinois region, and the state of Illinois. We've heard several times, I think, from various speakers about the impact he had in getting that capital bill passed, which resulted in this facility. But it's, I think, important to point out that this had an impact on a number of universities and colleges throughout the state of Illinois and all of the communities in which they reside. And Glenn's passion for communities and for education, he had an impact that went well beyond even this facility. But naming this facility, the Transportation Education Center, in his honor, which really houses two of our signature programs here, is a fitting recognition of his legacy. A legacy that's not just on this university, but again on the region and the state of Illinois. Earlier this year, when the Board of Trustees decided to name or voted to name the Transportation Education Center in honor of Dr. Poshard, I noted that I think every university leader wants to leave a legacy that goes well past their time and their role. And Glenn certainly has done that in many, many ways, including this. And it really goes beyond this. The legacy he has is really everyone he has worked with, both here at SIU and beyond, to everyone he's represented and served in the state legislature and in Congress, to everyone he and Joe have helped in so many different ways, to his family and friends, and as we even heard today, from the people who've learned from his teaching and his example, his impact and legacy is amazing. So Joe and Glenn, thank you for your dedication to education, to young people. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for, as Thomas Merton reminds us to do, loving others without stopping to inquire whether or not they are worthy of that. One final thing on a personal note, I want to personally and publicly thank you. Anybody who's served in a role like I am in knows that a good relationship with your predecessors is by no means a guarantee. In fact, more often it's the exception to the rule than what actually happens. I've been in higher education for 30 years. I have never seen anybody be as gracious and supportive of the person who succeeds them as Glenn has been towards me, as really Glenn and Joe have been to both me and my wife, Laura. I can never thank you enough for that. I appreciate that really every day, and I know that, again, it's not something you can take for granted. I also will say with Glenn, he has set a standard for service and leadership that the rest of us can only hope to aspire to. And I think for me and for every future president of SIU, you've set a standard that if we even come close to, we've done a great job for this university and this university system. So again, thank you for everything you've done for the Southern Illinois University system.
Thank you, Dr. Mahoney. Before the ceremony, Senator Fowler and I were joking around about how can we get our names on a building, and then we immediately said there's no way we're going to do that. So just so you know, that bar is raised so high. We're lucky to be in the building. That's about it. All right, and I'd like to introduce our chairman, Trustee Gilbert, who serves as our board chair. Please join me in welcoming Chairman Gilbert to the podium.
Thank you. Is this okay, Greg? Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. President Mahoney and Chancellor Elaine, my fellow trustees and distinguished guests, and Glenn, now I know how you won all those elections. You just get your family to vote for you. and you've already won. But it's a pleasure to be here today. I do, Trustee Tedrick and Trustee Hightower, Vice Chair, told a few stories. I'm going to tell a story. Well, it has to do with one of the benefits that I've had being elected board chair is because of the trustees that I have. And of course, we got Trustee Sharma, but with Roger Tedrick and Ed Hightower having previously been on the board, they've given me a lot of advice, and I rely upon them, and it's made my job as board chair a lot easier. And I will say this, that the best decision that this board has made was to hire Dan Mahoney as our president, and the best decision he made was to recommend Austin Lane as our SIU Carbondale Chancellor. And a quick story, when we interviewed Dan in St. Louis, and when he left, we knew that he was going to be in the, on the short list, and then we invited the people on the short list, and they came to Carbondale and Edwardsville and went to Springfield, and Dan brought Laura, and after we interviewed them, and when they went back, I said, well, if Dan doesn't accept the position, we're going to hire Laura. She is an outstanding First Lady for the SIU system. And again, it's an honor and privilege for me to be here this morning, the naming of this Transportation Education Center for a man who not only contributed, but continues to contribute to the lives and well-being of the people of all ages here in Southern Illinois. I want to say at the outset that I'm biased, as I have been a fan of Glenn Poshard for a long time, and he has been a family friend for many, many years. There's been few people in my memory who have contributed more to the improvement and betterment of society and education than Glenn Poshard. His career in government and politics is a model for those who would aspire to public service. Glenn's whole life has been one of public service to his community, his state, and his nation. From his service to our country in the military, to the state legislature, to Congress, to serving as vice chancellor here at SIU, to the Board of Trustees, to the presidency of this great institution, and now serving on the Board of Trustees of John A. Logan College, Glenn Poshard's life is his dedication and commitment to helping uphold our democracy and commitment to helping everybody's a person's day being better than the day before, and making a person better through education, because Glenn believes that education is the bridge to tomorrow for our youth, and especially our underserved and disadvantaged population. Or he and his wife Jo contribute to through the Poshard Foundation for abused children, where that foundation has provided funding for the benefit of abused children and other victims of domestic abuse throughout Southern Illinois. Glenn Poshard understood from the very start that public service was just that, serving the public. And he did it without sacrificing his principles for political gain, which is a rarity in today's political climate. In a term that is not used very much today, Glenn Poshard was a statesman. And he used his knowledge, skill, and persuasive authority to fight for and get funding to build this magnificent building that might eventually have been built, but not here at the Southern Illinois University or Southern Illinois Airport, had it not been for Glenn Poshard. He made sure that when the funding came through, this facility would be built here. In summary, Glenn Poshard was involved with this project from the time he was vice chancellor to the SIU board chair, and then bringing the project to fruition as SIU president. Glenn, I hope that the students who have and continue to get their on-the-job training here and prepare them for whatever workforce of their choice will reflect on your contribution to education as one of the reasons why they receive the high quality of education that is and will be culminated in their graduation from this outstanding university. I want to congratulate you on a well-deserved tribute for what you have done and continue to do for the improvement of educational opportunities and quality of life for not only for our students, but for everyone in Southern Illinois. Thank you and congratulations on this well-deserved honor.
Thank you, Judge. If you ever want a history lesson, sit down and have lunch with Chairman Gilbert and with Dr. Poshard. I tell you what, they can go way back in terms of what the institution, where it's come from, and it's always good to hear that history. I do want to acknowledge some folks who slipped in on us. Gary Schaefer, is Gary here, SI Airport Manager? Give Gary a big round of applause. He's back there. Gary, thanks for what you do. Appreciate your work. Also, our partners are here. I saw Ron House and Kirk over at Logan. Are they here, still here, hopefully? Kirk and Ron, please wave. There they are, President over at Logan. Great partnerships with Logan. Appreciate their support and being here. When I was a little jealous, Dr. Poshard, I've been here 2 years. I don't think I've ever had the cheerleaders show up and do anything at any of my events. So give the cheerleaders a big round of applause. They're here for you. They're here for you. I also see Dylan out there. Dylan is over our dog pound. Dylan, I got to give him a shout out. Dylan, go ahead and wave. He's the guy that's going crazy every Saturday at the football games. All right. Well, now let's keep moving in the program. It's my pleasure to introduce Representative Jay Hoffman, the Assistant House Majority Leader. Representative Hoffman played an integral role in the passage of a capital bill during Dr. Poshard's presidency. I think you heard some of that a little earlier from Dr. Hightower. We're grateful for his leadership in the House and in making the TEC a reality. Please join me in welcoming Representative Jay Hoffman.
Well, thank you, Chancellor, and Glenn and Joe. Congratulations, well deserved. It's true. Glenn traveled the entire state with Dave Gross, and I basically lived in my office. There was no way I wasn't going to pass the Capitol bill, right? I see two former colleagues, great friends of mine. Senator Larry Woolard is here. Senator Woolard. And Senator Dave Luchtefeld. Dave? Both of those individuals were very helpful in the Senate in making sure that that was reality. I also would like to thank my colleagues who are here who represent this area. We worked very well together, along with the Board of Trustees and the President and the Chancellors at all of the various campuses, to make sure that the SIU system is adequately funded, that the new capital bill makes sure that the $45 billion capital bill that we worked so hard to pass, make sure that SIU is receiving the projects that are necessary. That's going to continue to happen. So I personally am from the Metro East area, and I was driving down here and was thinking about how long I knew Glenn. And it's been over 30 years, Glenn. And I'm very proud to call you a friend, very proud to have worked with you. But I think you all agree with me that Glenn Poshard is a Southern Illinois treasure. I would say he's an Illinois treasure. He's a national treasure. And as you think of all the accomplishments that Glenn has had, this is only fitting that this great facility be named after him. So I wondered as I was driving down here, why was I asked to speak? And I kind of figured it out. I'm getting old. I've known him for a long time, right? Larry and Dave, I'm still doing it, though. I'm still doing it. It reminds me of a story. When we get sworn in, and my colleagues know, and Senator Woolard and Senator Luchtefeld know, we get sworn in January after an election. So we'll have an election in November. We'll be sworn in the beginning of January. And after you get sworn in the House anyway, you get your license plates, okay? And you pay, they're not free, you pay like everybody else, the registration fee. And your license plate number in the House is based on your seniority, okay? So if there's 118 members of the House, so the newest member is number 118, and the longest serving member, not the oldest, the longest serving member is number 1. So I'm waiting after getting sworn in, Larry, 2 years ago, and I'm waiting to get my license plate, and I'm signing my check, and there's a freshman legislator standing behind me, and they said, Jay, well, you're number 3. That means number 3 in seniority. And the guy behind me, the new guy, says, wow, you're number 3. I'd do anything to be number 3. And I said, well, I'd do anything to be your age at 118 again, right? That has absolutely nothing to do with Glenn Poshard, but I remembered the story when I was coming down here. But I say that just to point out the years that I have been able to work with Glenn, the years that I was able to, when he was in Congress, actually work with him on the federal level, and then when he came here as president of this great system and institution, they truly were gems for me. And I want to just say this, Glenn, this would not have been here without you. So many things would not have happened in Southern Illinois at SIUE or at the medical center in Springfield if it wasn't for you. So congratulations again, Joe and Glenn. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Representative Hoffman. We appreciate that. I know when I got here a couple of years ago, Dr. Mahoney and I think we had lunch talking about all the great things that were happening, and also had lunch with our next speaker. And I just want to make sure I get my eyesight here going. Our next speaker is a dutiful public servant. He was elected to the Bunker Hill City Council in 1997. Since then, he has served as mayor and chairman of the county board and in the Senate representing the 48th district. In January 2021, he became deputy governor, serving as a senior advisor to Governor J.B. Pritzker with a focus on downstate economic revitalization. Please join me in welcoming Deputy Governor Andy Menard to the podium.
I got 5 minutes. Good morning. I understand I'm the last speaker before we hear from Glenn, so I will be brief. To President Mahoney and Chancellor Elaine and Joe and everyone from the Poshard family, and of course the members of the SIU Board of Trustees, especially to Dr. Hightower, who I hitched a ride with here this morning. He's a great driver, by the way. Did he have his glasses on? There we go. I'm going to move on. How about that? Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Glenn, thank you for the invitation to speak in recognition of this important event, recognizing your public service. It's a true honor for me. Governor Pritzker sends his regrets. He couldn't be here this morning, but he sends me with both his greetings and his congratulations to everyone in the SIU family. There are very few people in recent history in our state who have served Southern Illinois and frankly all of Illinois like Glenn Poshard. Because of his presence, you always knew there would be someone, whether in the halls of Congress, in the halls of Springfield, or traversing the far reaches of our diverse state, who was willing to stand up and say these words: "We deserve good things too." The fruits of Glenn's labor dot the landscape far and wide. This state-of-the-art $63 million transportation education center serves as a catalyst for the university's development as one of the premier aviation programs in the world, and is just one of the many remarkable things Glenn has brought to Southern Illinois. As a legislator, he was dedicated to increasing access to healthcare in communities that are far too often overlooked. As an advocate for higher education, he's overseen expansions at both the Southern Illinois University System and John A. Logan College, ensuring generations of Southern Illinoisans with an opportunity for a quality educational experience. In short, Glenn has dedicated his entire career to creating a better life for everyone around him through the mechanism of public service. So it's only fitting that the SIU Transportation Education Center is named in honor of a man who brought so many good things home to the place where he lives. So I'm going to end on a personal note. It was back in 1997 when I was a student at SIU, Edwardsville. Please don't throw me out of the room. I was finishing up my degree. And my state senator at the time, Glenn, your dear friend and your colleague, Vince DiMuzio, called me on a Friday night, and he said to me, I need you to meet Congressman Glenn Poshard. He used the word need. I need you to meet Congressman Glenn Poshard. He said, be in Gillespie tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So when Vince DiMuzio tells you to be in Gillespie at 8 o'clock, you get there at 7:45. Gillespie is a small town in southern Macoupin County, literally built on coal. And that morning, I shared a cup of coffee with Glenn for the first time, had a conversation with him for the first time. It took me all of about 2 minutes to figure out what makes him click. Took me 2 minutes. Honesty, family comes first. You lead with love. You work for opportunity for everyone. You stand up for what is right, and you have courage to speak up when something is wrong. That's tough in this business. The seeds of my admiration and respect for Glenn were planted that morning. And here today, 25 years later, I will tell you that that admiration and respect has only grown over the years. And I think we should all acknowledge, and Judge Gilbert, you acknowledge this as well, we should acknowledge that in the world that we live in today, serving in public life, serving in politics, we should acknowledge that that really is hard to do. It's rare. It's rare that the type of admiration and respect that we have for Glenn, the type that withstands the test of time, it's a testament to him and it's a testament to who he is. So today, that collective respect and admiration is being commemorated for generations to come, who will walk through the doors of this remarkable building and they will find the opportunity that they're looking for. And it's because of his work and his work alone. So Glenn, on behalf of Governor Pritzker and our entire administration and all of my colleagues, all of us in the governor's office, congratulations. Grab my papers here. Excuse me.
Great words. I think, Dr. Poshard's always working, so as I walk back over, he's scanning the room, just so you know that. And I think we have, help me out, Dr. Poshard, is it Dan Phelps? I got to get this Texas out of me. I'm trying to get used to everyone who, Congressman David Phelps, would you please stand? There he is. Thank you for that. Thank you for being here. We have, Dr. Poshard, just so you know, some really words of thanks that are coming from our U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth. She couldn't join us today, but she did want to send her congrats on all of the success that you've had throughout the years and your relationship and working with her. Also from U.S. Senator Dick Durbin. He also couldn't make it here today, but sends, again, some very lovely words, and we'll make sure that you get all of this information. It's now my honor and privilege to invite Dr. Poshard, the man of the hour, to officially receive this honor. As many of you know, Dr. Poshard began his lifelong engagement with Southern Illinois University as a teacher in the halls of Southern Illinois high schools, to serving as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives in the halls of Congress after a stint in the Illinois State Senate. Following his retirement from Congress, he became Vice Chancellor for Administration here at SIU Carbondale and was later named to the SIU Board of Trustees, where he served as chair. He also served as president of the SIU system from 2006 to 2014. Among his many notable achievements while serving as SIU system president is his instrumental role in the construction of this building, which you've heard a lot of today. Through his political savvy and long-term relationships in Springfield, he was able to secure the funding needed for this state-of-the-art educational facility. Dr. Poshard and his wife, Jo, are longtime benefactors of SIU and many local charities. They established the Poshard Foundation for Abused Children, which has raised substantial amounts of support to care for abused children and victims of domestic violence or domestic abuse throughout the Southern Illinois region. This morning, you may have heard countless examples of Dr. Poshard's contributions to this campus, to the SIU system, to our community, our state, and beyond. But no one is more deserving of this honor than this man who is both a model citizen and a model Saluki. So please join me in giving a big round of applause to Dr. Glenn Poshard.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Today is really a first for me. It's the first time Joe has ever got me in a pair of brown shoes with a blue suit. So thankful that all of you are here. To my wife, Jo, to our son, Dennis, and his family, our daughter, Kristen, and her family, and to nearly 40 members of my extended family, my brother Ed, my sister Madeline, our grandchildren, cousins, nieces, and nephews, to my sister-in-law, Karen, her best friend, Lee, and her family who joins us here today. Thank you for being here. Honey, I want you to stand one more time because you've been through all this with us over all the years. Chairman Gilbert, Trustees Hightower and Tedrick and Sharma, thank you for this great honor and for your years of service. Our university has had no more loyal and dedicated trustees over the years than these three gentlemen. I'm equally grateful to the board members who are not here with us today. John Simmons, who is represented though, we appreciate that. Ed Curtis, Sarah Sager, along with student trustees Dorcas Brow and Haley Odell. President Mahoney, thank you for this honor and for your excellent leadership of our entire SIU system. And Laura, thank you for being an important part of that. You are doing a great job. This board could not have picked a better leader to guide SIU through these difficult times in higher education. Chancellor Elaine, thank you for providing the stable and energetic leadership that SIU Carbondale needs. I believe that, along with Chancellor Minor at SIU Edwardsville and President Mahoney, SIU has one of the best teams of higher education leadership that we have ever had at this university. They deserve a great hand from all of our people. Representative Hoffman, every time this university system has needed a champion in the legislature, whether for the medical school in Springfield, the dental school in Alton, the SIU Edwardsville, or the SIU Carbondale campuses, you have been there, and we are grateful for that. We are grateful for it. We're grateful also for your colleagues in the House, Representative Phelps and Representative Bruce Richmond, for all that they did to assist SIU over the years, and your colleagues in the Senate, Senator Luchtefeld, who is here with us today, one of my dear friends, Senator Hayne, Senator DiMuzio, Senator Larry Woolard, Senator Jim Ray, Senator Dale Fowler, Senator Gary Forby, Senator Andy Minar, Senator Claiborne, and Senator Ralph Dunn. Phil, I want to tell you, we knew Ralph as a great, solid, conservative Republican state senator. There were so many times when Ralph and I got in the car here and rode to Springfield together to session. Because in that day and time, people worked together. And so I wish it could be that way again. I wish it could be that way again. And Matt, to you and your staff, Darla, your assistant, and to Paula, Senator Mahoney's, President Mahoney's assistant, thank you for putting all this together. You guys were exceptional, and I appreciate it. I want you to know that. Every magnificent building, such as this one, has a history. It has roots. It has a family who conceives it, births it, builds it, and maintains it. Permit me, if you will, to share with you a little bit of the family history of this Transportation Education Center. It goes back a long way, as do many of our programs at SIU, to our iconic president, Dwight Morris. We had a local man here named Gene Seibert from Carbondale, who back in the 1940s got a degree in aviation from Parks College in Cahokia, Illinois. He and a partner actually started the development of the Southern Illinois Airport where you sit today. And at that time, in the late 40s, it was just 3 grassy strips out here in the fields. Gene tried to get the university to start an aviation program, but was told this was not an appropriate university offering. That is, until Dr. Morris became president in 1949, and Dr. Morris loved to fly, and he equally loved being in Springfield promoting SIU with the legislature and the governor. Gene Seibert understood Dr. Morris, and Dr. Morris understood aviation. And in their many flights to Springfield, their conversations led to the establishment of the aviation technology and the aviation management and flight programs at SIU. Phil, I know your father was a close friend of both Gene Seibert and President Morris, and I can only imagine those guys flying up to Springfield together in that little plane of Mr. Seibert's, bouncing around all over the sky and talking about future plans for SIU, even before your dad became the state senator that represents SIU. And through the years, these programs were grown and sustained by great leaders such as Dean Ernest Simon, Chairman Tony De La Rosa, Larry Staples, John Cotter, Dave Newmeyer, and Mike Bergener, and we're grateful for the championship that they brought to this aviation program. At the same time, in 1952, at the OVTI, the Vocational Technical Institute campus at Carterville, the SIU Automotive Technology program began a degree offering. Under L.D. Wiley, the founding director, and subsequently under great chairmen such as Jim White, Jack Greer, Mike Berman, and now Drew Croxall, this program is recognized as one of the finest in the country. In 1999 and several subsequent years, the Automotive Technology program was ranked #1 in the nation. 2 great programs right here at SIU. Beginning as early as the late 1960s, there were advisory committees led by Neil Schwartz and Joe DeParto in both automotive and aviation technology, which kept abreast of the latest developments in their industries, working closely with major automotive and aviation corporations, which were taking note of the excellent students these programs were turning out. And the advisory committees were the key to helping the deans of the college to understand and advocate for the needs of these outstanding programs. 3 of these deans I would like to recognize today. First, Dr. Elaine Batello, the Dean of the College of Applied Sciences and Arts from 1991 to 2002. In 1999, I became Vice Chancellor for Administration at SIU Carbondale under Dr. John Jackson, the Interim Chancellor at SIU Carbondale. Dr. Jackson called me into his office one day and asked me to form a land use committee to prioritize the infrastructure needs of the campus. He said, things have kind of fallen into disrepair and not much has been built since Dr. Morris. I immediately called Phil Gatton, the Director of Physical Plant Operations, and asked Phil to co-chair the committee with me. And over the next year, listening to hundreds of people tell us what the campus needed, we put together a land use plan which included the construction of several new buildings and the renovations of others. This plan is an important part of Dr. Jackson's legacy to SIU. And John, I want to thank you for that today and for giving me that opportunity. I will never forget the day that Dean Batello, Chairman Dave Newmeyer, and Chairman Jack Greer came before our committee. Their advocacy and insistence on building this transportation education center was overwhelming. I felt like if we didn't get this done, Dr. Batello was going to skin my hide. Elaine and Dave and Jack knew that they had 3 of the top programs in the nation, and they weren't going to be satisfied with a bunch of old Army buildings out at VTI. They deserved this building. They had been out crisscrossing Southern Illinois in meetings set up by John Davis and Brian Chapman to sell this new building to the region. They knew that the state had decreed in the 90s that all associate degree programs be sent to the community colleges. Our programs were already in old Army facilities, which might hasten this move. So Dr. Batello said, let's build one building which would house all 3 programs, save building cost, and emphasize the bachelor's degree. And that became the selling point for this building being constructed. When Dean Batello retired in 2002, the work was passed on to Dr. Paul Sarvala as the new dean of the college. Dr. Sarvala did marvelous work in keeping this concept alive with many meetings with department chairs, and he was the key person in this oversight of the effort to pull the plans of each department together. When I retired as Vice Chancellor for Administration in 2002, and later joined the Board of Trustees with my fellow board members, Roger Tedrick and Ed Hightower, I continued to meet with Paul to check on the progress of this cooperative plan. And I never forgot the land use plan and its priorities. During my time on the board, I had many conversations with local and state legislators, and particularly my friends, State Senators Dave Luchtefel and State Senator Larry Woolard, as well as the governor, about different parts of the land use plan, but especially this building. A fortuitous event took place. In 2003, Senator Woolard resigned his position as state senator and became the Southern Illinois Director of the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Larry knew about this building, and when the board allowed me the opportunity to become president in 2006, Larry and I were able to convince Governor Blagojevich that this was a premier economic development project for Southern Illinois and funding was necessary. And we knew that we had Jay Hoffman in the House to convince the Speaker of the same thing. So, Dr. Stuckey and I, with the help of Dave Gross, our Director of Governmental Affairs, were able to move the Transportation Education Center to the top of the Capital Development Board list, and in time, the planning and construction monies were appropriated. As Ed previously mentioned, Representative Hoffman, some years later, was crucial in helping us also with a $80 million appropriation for the new science building on the Edwardsville campus, working with legislators, all of them. No one was more fundamental in helping us receive over $200 million of capital appropriations for the SIU system than Dave Gross, who worked in partnership with our office nearly all the years of my presidency. Dave is here today. Dave, thank you. Stand up a second, Dave. They need to see you. Absolutely. Appreciate you, buddy. When the money was appropriated and the plans finished, Terry Owens was the interim dean of CASA from 2008 to 2012 and was key in the implementation phase of this project. His background as chair of the Department of Agriculture enabled him to work with the contractors who built this great center from the time the construction trailers were located in mud right here in the middle of a cornfield to nearly the grand opening in 2012. Terry played a major role in the building of this center. During much of the construction phase, Dr. Sam Goldman was chancellor, and along with his vice chancellor for administration, Kevin Payne, they kept a watch on all the proceedings here at the airport and over the campus, and I am so grateful for the great work that they accomplished. Sam, thank you so much, my good friend. Kevin, thank you for all of your work. We needed private funding to supplement the public dollars, and our go-to guy was Kevin Lister. Kevin was responsible for raising hundreds of thousands of dollars that helped construct this building and buy much of the needed equipment that it housed. These are the people who conceived it, who birthed it, who built it, and as you tour this building today, 10 years after we opened it, this is our 10th anniversary, you will be amazed at the staff who has maintained this phenomenal building. Key members of the team without whom this building could not complete its mission for our students. All of this work that I have described to you, from the great professors who began teaching all the way back in the 1950s and 60s until this very day, building nationally and internationally ranked programs, to the chairmen and deans and chancellors who advocated so strongly for this building to house academic excellence, to the legislators who helped us receive the funding, to Dr. Stuckey, our Vice President for Financial Affairs, who kept every one of the millions of dollars that went into this facility in perfect financial order, to Vice Presidents Haller and Sarvala, our Vice Presidents for Academic Affairs, who made sure our academics matched our aspirations for excellence, to Paula Keith, my assistant, who kept us all moving forward through countless meetings, to our Board of Trustees, who provided the direction, the advice, and the encouragement we all needed to do our job, especially me. This is the family. This is the team that made this building possible. These are our roots. There are two young men with us here today that I would like you to meet. Would Jeremiah Brown and Joe Heinemann please stand up and remain standing? Where are you, Jeremiah? Hold on. Stay up. Where's Joe? Joe, stay up. Jeremiah is a young man from Chicago. He is presently the elected student trustee at John A. Logan Community College, where we both sit next to each other on the Board of Trustees. Jeremiah is working his way through college. He has a young family and will be graduating from the John A. Logan Auto Mechanics program this year. He is carrying 18 semester hours, more than a full load of courses, and will be coming here to the SIU Automotive Technology program to get his bachelor's degree, and upon graduation, one of the finest jobs America has to offer him to build a career and provide for his family. Thank you, Jeremiah. Joe is a senior at Cobden High School this year. He is applying to SIU to major in aviation technology. He is almost ready to fly solo and get his private pilot's license. Not too long from now, right, Joe? Exactly. But the degree he gets here will enable him to get an excellent job in a great industry to help him build his career and take care of his family. I say to Jeremiah and to Joe, continue to aim high. This building and all the knowledge that is in it is our gift to you. This is your building. It will take you as high as you want to go. In the same way, you are a gift to us. You are the reason we seek to learn, to teach, to see you grow into productive citizens. All these people I mentioned today, who worked so hard over many years to bring this outstanding facility to you, join me in saying thank you for giving us the opportunity to do what we love, to teach you what we know, in the hope that one day you will pass it on to the next generation. What does it mean to me to have my name on this building? It means that in the responsibility accorded to us by the Board of Trustees, our team remained true to its roots, remained true to the best academic and financial traditions of this beloved university, in making sure that Jeremiah and Joe and the thousands of students who preceded them and the thousands who will come after them have a place to become the best automotive and aviation workers America has to offer. That's what it means to me. God bless all of you, and thank you for being here to celebrate this occasion with us.